If you are wondering what the best and worst weapons to use in Apex Legends Season 27 are, you are in the right spot. Today we're going to be breaking down all of them so you can't get the edge on the competition. We have one singular weapon in the C tier, which are the fine or the fair weapons in Apex, and I do think every weapon is usable to some degree, but there are some weapons that are going to struggle in one particular mode or maybe one type of play, and the Devotion is absolutely one of these weapons. It's hard to use and really be effective outside of that barrel stuffing range. The recoil is quite considerable, and the removal of the LMG hipfire perk where the spread gets tighter this season does really destroy the Devo's chances when you do stack it up to the competition. The Devotion does have a great time to kill once it finally is spun up, but it does take a little bit to get there. And two of the biggest problems with the Devotion is it takes a lot of attachments, which means it's going to take longer to get that thing kitted up, and it is energy ammo hungry, which can be difficult since energy ammo is the lowest per stack. The Devotion can be serviceable in pubs, and I absolutely do recommend that you run the infinite ammo amp if you are trying to actually use this weapon. Now that C tier is out of the way, we have quite a few weapons in B tier which are good or decent in Apex. These for me are typically those weapons that might really excel at one aspect of the game, but kind of lose out on a couple other areas. The first is the Prowler SMG. The Prowler is definitely not bad, but it's also not super competitive in the TTK aspect. The Prowler is going to straight up just lose out in a fight to most of the other close range powerhouses, the R9, the RE45, the CAR, the P2020 of course. The Prowler though is really great for crowd control with lots of enemies around, as that 35 round purple mag is going to be pretty huge. But that being said, you got to find that mag first, and the Prowler does struggle off the drop with its base 20 rounds. Some people really like the Prowler now that you do have that full auto hop up, but honestly the burst is better. The shots come out quicker in burst, and it has zero horizontal recoil in burst mode, which means you are kind of just handicapping yourself or making it a little bit harder to use if you are actually just using the gun in full auto mode and you can't use it in burst. The Prowler is going to be good for pubs and those who like to push and take a lot of fights, but I don't think it's really that great in a competitive environment. Very similar to the Prowler in some aspects, the PK or the Peacekeeper is also decent as a secondary weapon. The PK did slide down a little bit since last season due to the nerf in damage. They did not reduce the damage by that much, but it does under 100 now, which does mean you can't two-tap anyone with the PK. You are going to have to shoot that third shot if you are straight up going into a fight with just the Peacekeeper, because maybe your primary is a charge rifle or some other long-range weapon. The PK is still one of the best swap 2 weapons to tap someone down if you are starting off with something else, which does make it serviceable in some aspects of Apex, but if you need to fight multiple enemies at once, I don't think it's really that great. I like the PK to use it as a true secondary, and it is the best shotgun when it does come to overall range due to the choke, but I would rather have any of the other shotguns in the game for a pure TTK or a multi-enemy fight. While the previous two have some uses in different aspects of Apex, I struggle to find a true good use for the longbow. Yes, it works at range, but it really just doesn't do anything better than what the other weapons in the game can already do. You're better off running a 30-30 for comparable high damage with more uses in the mid-range, or you can run a G7 for faster firing, and it is better at applying pressure. If you want a true sniper weapon with a lot of forgiveness, that is the one thing it is good at, then the longbow is decent, and unless you are having issues splitting up ammo from your squad mates, I would go to one of the other great marksman weapons that we do have right now. I will state that I do like it early on in the early game of Apex, as its close range iron sight potential is quite huge. If you can get a headshot, you're going to do 108 damage, which is very devastating when an enemy does have great armor. But beyond this, I think the longbow is just to get it off the ground and find something else as soon as you can. The wingman for me, I had a very difficult time ranking, as if you have the perfect shot, like the wingman always has been, it is incredible. I do rank the wingman differently in pubs and ranked. In pubs, the wingman is kind of like an A+ weapon, and in ranked, it's more like a C tier weapon because it just does not have enough range. The wingman is absolutely fun to use, but I'm not ranking the weapons on fun, and it really does lack a competitive sense due to that pure range aspect to just melt someone like a G7 could. If you're at the perfect range where you're kind of outside of that SMG or shotgun range, but not too far where an assault rifle or an LMG is going to beat you, then the wingman can be a really good time. I do think the wingman is better this season than it has been in the past few seasons, even though the skull piercer has been removed. I would try it out if you have not used it in a little while. Next up is going to be the EVA 8 shotgun, and it is really solid at close ranges, but it doesn't really do anything better than the other shotgun options that we do have. It loses out on range compared to the Mastiff or the PK, and it's not as flexible in range and TTK aspects as the Akimbo Mozambiques. The EVA 8 is a fair choice to the backup of some playstyles like LMG users, or maybe someone using an assault rifle like the R301 or the Nemesis, where you want that quick time to kill in a very close range package, but maybe you do not want to run something like an R9 because you are trying to save ammo for the Nemesis or your primary weapon. The EVA 8 is probably not the greatest marksman or long range backup due to the lack of that longer side of close range effectiveness, so I would look elsewhere elsewhere if you are running something like a G7 or a 30-30, which honestly, there's a lot of players using these guns right now because they are very good in Apex Season 27. One of my previous favorites season after season drops down quite a bit this time, and it is the Rampage LMG. Much like the Devotion, the loss of the hipfire accuracy perk on LMGs makes this thing feel very unusable at close ranges. It's still great at the longer and mid-range damage farming, but it's also hard to compete with the G7 or again, even a 30-30 repeater. I think if you are running the infinite ammo perk, meaning you can't hold more thermites due to this, then it does have potential to be solid as you can keep spinning this thing up. It just kind of lacks all-around use right now. It's really not great in the TTK. It's not the greatest at range, and it's not the greatest close range weapon. The Rampage is absolutely a jack of all trades weapon, but a master of none. So if you want something that can kind of do it all, but you are going to also lose out compared to a lot of other guns, then it is a nice all-around weapon that you might want to try. A borderline A tier weapon for me, but the nerfs this season kept it from reaching this, and it is the charged rifle sniper rifle. The charge is very good in ranked where you want that high damage from longer ranges, and you do just want to purely farm damage and use up enemy shields. I don't think it's anywhere as near competitive as something like a G7 or even a Sentinel sniper that can be used in close ranges in a pinch, where the charge rifle, simply put, if an enemy gets close to you, you really only have one gun, and it's not the charge rifle. It just cannot perform in close range at all. Again, I'm not ranking on fun, but the charge rifle is hilariously fun to still use. And if you want the biggest damage potential at range and the best chance to drop someone with a weapon that is not named the Kraber, then the charge is gonna be it. And my last B tier weapon is another borderline A tier weapon, and it is the Volt SMG. I dropped the Volt down to B tier right before I started recording this video because, simply put, there are so many better options in A tier and S tier. The Volt does lack a true competitive TTK like the others above it. However, the Volt is easy to use, which is nice, but it's hard to compare something like this to the RE45 or even the L-Star, which does perform similarly, but it has much better range, and we'll talk about this shortly. The Volt is a decent beginner type weapon if you do really struggle with recoil control, but I would look elsewhere if you are trying to play the higher ranks of Apex Legends. Playing with randoms in Apex is pretty awful. However, and lucky for you, I have a dedicated Discord with over 17,000 members where you can find like-minded players to party up with, or even ask me any questions in there, as I am pretty active as well. A tier for me are those weapons that are amazing, and to be honest, you can't really go wrong with any of the guns in this tier, and most are going to be used at various stages of the game, whether it's early or late, and or if it's pubs or ranked Apex Legends. Barely making this tier for me this season is going to be the Flatline Assault Rifle. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you feel about assault rifles, we just are not in an AR meta right now. The Flatline is really great as a mid to close range hybrid weapon, but it is not going to eliminate anyone faster than the close range powerhouses that you can use this season. The Flatline is also going to lose out at the longer ranges, and thus this is why it does have a soft A ranking for me. The Flatline is going to still be solid for pubs, but less so for ranked Apex. I will use this early on in the game when I need that powerful close to mid-range option when I can't find anything else, but otherwise I'm going to drop it for something with a little bit more range flexibility. One of those all-around flex options is the Hemlock Assault Rifle as well. The Hemlock is really great as an alternate to the Nemesis, but it isn't as fast in the TTK aspect, which does keep it only in A tier for me. It's a great mid-range beamer with its bursts that can also be a little bit more effective than this at the really long-range tap firing, but this is most likely not going to eliminate or knock anyone at range, especially not better than a 30-30 or a G7. The Hemlock is fair in close ranges with that hip fire option, and it's not too bad in this. And overall, the Hemlock is probably one of the better all-around weapons that you can use if you want to be effective really at any range in the game. If you are looking for a weapon with a decent mid-range TTK, then the Spitfire is a really solid choice right now. Kind of similar to the Flatline in some ways, but more flexibility due to that mag size. It did see a nerf in that LMG hipfire again, which has made it drop down a little bit in my ranking because it's just not as good in close range. The Spitfire, though, is my ultimate pub weapon. It's probably S tier for pubs, but maybe more like a high B for ranked Apex. It's great for pushing and participating in a multi-enemy fight when a lot of players are being really aggressive because of its mag size, and really the Spitfire does not need anything else than an optic, which is quite nice as well. Our first true mid to long range option in the game is now going to be the 30-30 repeater. They did nerf the 30 pretty heavily this season due to the bullet velocity getting nerfed and the loss of the skull piercer. This does mean its overall potential is a lot worse than it was last season, and thus this is why it is squarely in the middle of A tier. Still, it's really good if you want to mix and match this, a G7 and a triple take amongst your squad to split up ammo types, and the 30-30 repeater is really not terrible at the close range if you can't get a hip fire in there, but I do think the triple take or the G7 is going to be much better as being that flex mid to close range option. Next up, we have a weapon that is a little bit harder to use, but more of a risk reward weapon, and it is the Sentinel, squarely in the middle of A tier as well. The Sentinel is insane off the drop. You charge it up, you get one headshot, and you are going to knock someone with gray armor. The Sentinel is also really great just all game long to farm your Evo and apply pressure. It does require an accurate shot, which is going to be a drawback for some players. It's really not flexible or forgiving at all, and I would say it's not going to be better than using something like a G7, a bow check, or a triple take if you want to purely farm damage and apply pressures to enemies at range. I actually kind of recommend that one member of your squad tries to run at least one Sentinel, so you have that extreme power mixed in with some G7 and triple take users, so you can apply more constant pressure as well. The Sentinel is also somewhat reliant on shield cell charging, which isn't terrible, but it's also something that you will have to consider. I kind of like running the unlimited battery amps, so I can only use my cells solely on charging up the Sentinel. Taking a step back from the range options, one of my premier secondary options right now is going to be the Massive Shotgun. It is decent off the drop, but it becomes very lethal once that new hop-up is unlocked on the Massive. It's going to let you shoot faster, and you are going to get one more round in the mag, which is very noticeable. And speaking of the magazine, I really like that you only have to reload one round at a time. This gives you a lot of flexibility. If there's a lot of enemies pushing you, you can fire a shot, reload one round, fire another shot. You do not have to reload the whole mag, which does mean you're going to have more uptime in a fight. It's not going to be as fast killing as an EVA. It's not going to have as much range as the PK, but it does have nearly identical damage to the PK, just a little bit less. I think it's way more forgiving and way more just straight up usable. I'd probably still look at an R9 or an RE45 if you want that super competitive fighting weapon, but if you are running an ammo hungry primary like the Nemesis or maybe an L-Star, this thing is really great as a backup right now. And speaking of the L-Star is absolutely the best LMG in the game right now, and really it's a solid hybrid weapon that excels at all ranges, I would say. The biggest thing for me is its ammo hungry nature, which is what I was just getting at. In my opinion, if you are going to run the L-Star, you basically have to run the unlimited ammo amp for it to be very reliable throughout the game. This way you will not run out of ammo. The L-Star is really great as a close range hipfire option, and it's the only LMG to not have the removal of that hipfire accuracy increase the longer you do shoot the weapon, and this is going to give it a lot more flexibility compared to the other LMGs in the game. It's not terrible at long ranges, but it won't be as competitive against something like a marksman, which of course it shouldn't be because it is an LMG, but this is something to consider because a lot of players are running marksman weapons pretty much exclusively as that mid to long range option. The L-Star could be used as a secondary all-purpose weapon or your primary in pubs, and the TTK is really solid, and the no reload mechanic is honestly maybe a little forgotten these days. It can allow for some very nice uptime that other weapons cannot compete with, since you can control the reload in a little bit of a different way than a traditional weapon. In a similar vein as the L-Star, we do also have the R301, which is easier to use than the L-Star, but slightly lacks the close range power of an L-Star. It's still Apex's most tried and true assault rifle. It's the best weapon for beginners, or if you are struggling with the recoil control, you should probably use the R301. It's not overly competitive in the TTK, but even I often like to run the R301 due to its ease of use and the ability to let me focus on Apex's macro games such as positioning, rotating, understanding where enemies are. This way I can just kind of shoot my weapon. I don't really need to worry about my gun skill, and I can worry about other aspects of Apex Legends. I would use this gun if you are struggling with your shot and you want a little bit of a confidence booster. A weapon that is the opposite of a confidence booster though is going to be the Havoc. The recoil can be tough to control, but I would say that the Havoc is back to being one of the best secondary weapons with that huge mag size with an SMG-like feel. It's not the greatest at range, and it does take a little bit to get the turbocharger unlocked, but once you are there, the Havoc is quite good again. Energy ammo can be tough, and I like running the infinite ammo amp when I am using this weapon again. It's kind of the case for a lot of the energy weapons in the game. I would treat the Havoc like an SMG, and you will be able to do really great things when enemies do push in. Last and certainly not least is an S-tier-like performance weapon with one huge caveat that I do want to mention, and it is the bow check compound bow. Arguably, the Keck is the best marksman rifle in the game right now, or at least close to the best. The velocity of the arrows are fast, it shoots quick, and it does really great damage, surprisingly for a bow. The caveat I hinted at is of course the same thing season after season, and it is the overall ammo. If you are running this thing in pubs, it's not probably a deal, but if you are in a slower ranked game where you are not running out to pick your arrows up, you will have a problem, and this keeps it just outside of S tier for me. You pretty much have to run the infinite ammo amp if you do, and at this point I will say I think the weapon does become an S tier marksman weapon for me. I just wish I didn't have to be pigeonholed into using one specific amp just to use a gun, but it is what it is. If you haven't used the bow check in a minute, it's time to rethink this because it is amazing right now, and it's honestly pretty easy to use. As we move into S tier, don't forget that I now have a creator code for Apex Legends. If you want to go the extra mile and support me and my content when purchasing Apex coins or the battle passes, use this in the Apex online store and enter my code, which is just TimPro. I greatly appreciate the extra support, and thank you to everyone who has used my code to date. It's time for the best of the best weapons you can use in Apex Legends, and honestly, there are a lot of them right now, which shows relatively how healthy Apex Legends weapon meta is. A lot of these choices come down to how you want to play and what mode you might be playing, so you can choose the weapons that best reinforce your specific playstyle or what you are trying to achieve. One of the biggest changes of the season is first up, and it is the alternator, but my reasoning for this may not quite be what you think, or at least how to use this weapon is being fairly misunderstood. The alternator has always been a pretty slow time to elim weapon, but it made up for its overall damage per mag and its ease of use. This is still all kind of true, I will say. However, now you can change the fire mode to shoot 2 shots at once, which honestly does a ton of really quick damage. The only problem with this is you really can't use this at any meaningful range. This makes the alternator a great hybrid weapon between the close to mid range in its normal firing mode to also being like a mini EVA 8 shotgun in the close range with a wildly fast time to kill if you are hitting your shots and using it properly. I would recommend trying out the alternator to anyone looking to run and gun in pubs, or if you want to back up to a sniper or marksman where you can have that long range with your primary fire mode, while you can also go to the alternate fire mode to get an insanely fast TTK in those close ranges, which can be pretty deadly. The Mozambique Akimbo is one of the best secondaries you can use right now for its true use of the swap 2 to finish off enemies, which does make it a really solid secondary. It's also pretty good as a primary if you do have to run into a room and dish out a lot of damage. The new hop up on it as well is a nice bonus. It does increase the handling, and you do get 2 more rounds to shoot, which is honestly a pretty big deal. It's about a 20% increase in the total damage that you can do. The range is surprisingly great from the Mozam, which I think a lot of players still just simply don't understand this. You can't do a full hit almost up to like 40 meters or so. The timing of the Mozambique Akimbos can be pretty weird, as if you miss your first shot, I feel like there's these moments where you can continually miss over and over and you can't get yourself on track. The Mozambique Akimbo is just not going to be for everyone, but if you are running an ammo hungry option, I like running these as a backup, and I think it's one of the more competitive team fighting guns that you can roll with as well. The first or maybe second true mid to long range poking contender is going to be the triple take marksman rifle. It's the easiest to use out of all the marksmans or the snipers in the game due to the triple pellet spread. It's also pretty solid in close ranges as another shotgun-esque type of weapon. Due to that hip fire 3 pellet spread, you can do like a 70, which is honestly pretty easy to do. It's not the fastest killer at range because you gotta let that choke charge up, and it's not the best at pure suppression of enemies, but it has a really great headshot damage if you can connect and if you are shooting with your teammates. I would run this if you are struggling to hit your shot and you want an easy ranked option and a weapon that can truly farm a lot of damage. And honestly, it's another gun like the R301. You really don't gotta think when you shoot it. You just point and you will probably connect to the enemy. My only kind of more traditional assault rifle shooter in S tier is going to be the Nemesis Burst Assault Rifle. If you want a weapon with more power at that mid-range but less effectiveness at the longer ranges, Season 16's Nemesis continues to be the only real competitive option for you. It's ammo hungry as ever, and thus you will need a big bag or that amp again, but the Nemesis will let you be a little bit more competitive in the close range against anyone that might push you with the G7, a bow, or a triple take. Not really a lot to say about the Nemesis that hasn't been said over the last 3 years of its supremacy. It's still amazing, and it's something that at least one member of the squad probably should be running. Next up is the Kraber, and there's not a lot to say here. Its one-shot potential has been back for a little bit now, and thus it's an instant playmaker, or at least a massive damage farmer that you can do. If you get it earlier on in the match, you're just gonna have to prepare to swap it out, but otherwise it's pretty much an instant pickup whenever you see one, especially if you're already running a marksman. It's a no-brainer. You might as well take the Kraber. Next up are going to be my god tier weapons, which I do think are truly above all the rest that we have talked about so far. S tier weapons for me, and even some A tier weapons, can occasionally give them a run for their money, but the game does become a lot easier if you can find any of these weapons on top. The first we're going to talk about together, and it's 2 care package weapons. It's going to be the P2020 Akimbo and the newcomer to the package, the Car SMG. Both of these are instant pickups. It's a no-brainer, and arguably they are the best secondary or close range weapons in the game that you can use. The P20 20s are just simply insane at the overall amount of damage they can dish out, making them easy to use in a multi-enemy engagement. Range on them is also surprisingly incredible, and if you are playing an aggressive legend, or even someone like the buffed Horizon, sliding around and reloading truly just feels pretty nuts. The car, however, is easily the best close-range TTK weapon in the game. I don't think the ability to put the gun in either Disruptor to get more shield damage or put it in the hammer point mode to get more health damage really matters. I usually recommend Disruptor mode, as you are always going to do shield damage first. An argument I will say could be had that you have to do health damage to knock enemies, even if the enemies don't have shields, so you might want to prioritize this as well, but either way, I don't think you can go wrong with it. The damage per mag is simply just nuts on the car right now. The fire rate is great, and the base amount of ammo it comes with is also really solid. This weapon is truly a no-brainer. You gotta pick it up. Not quite as good as the car, obviously, but one of the top 2 ground weapons in the game is going to be the R99 SMG. There's not really a lot to say about one of Apex's most OG and great weapons. The time to kill is superb, the mag size isn't bad, recoil is somewhat noticeable, but with a little skill, it can be just fine. It's an incredible weapon that many use, and if you need to split ammo types up from your energy using teammates, this is a really great choice as one of the fastest time to kill secondary weapons in the game. And speaking of those energy weapons, we do have the RE45 as my top ground weapon you will more or less want to use every game. Since its energy inception last season, the RE45 has been a real force of terror. The range on it is sneaky good. You can absolutely shoot long range to finish enemies off. The close range TTK is incredible, and it's easy to use in hipfire as well. If you get that gold laser, it's also just game over, as this makes your hipfire even more compact now. The biggest negative of the RE45 is the same as every other energy weapon, and it's the ammo control, but you can get past this pretty easily, and it doesn't use as much ammo as like an L-STAR or an Nemesis. Another slight issue, or at least something that many players will not like and it won't feel too good, is that the gun does need a slight charge, which can be weird at first, but once you master this charge, you are going to absolutely do really well. This is probably the gun I think everyone should be running in that secondary slot. And the ultimate mid to long range and even a close range weapon that works in a pinch is going to be the one and only light ammo G7 Scout. The hipfire at close range is good. You can spray quickly at mid to long range to apply pressure and farm damage, and your long range tap firing is pretty good as well. The G7 can kind of just do it all right now, and it's the gun that I think most people will be running in ranked Apex Legends. Be sure to let me know which weapons you are using and what needs a buff this season. Drop a comment down below. Check out my legend ranking on screen if you haven't checked that out yet. Hit that like button, sub for more. Till next time, happy gaming, Legends.